With Chris, 11:38. Delighted to welcome back to the studio this morning Leanne Watson from the Canterbury Employers Chamber of Commerce. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Chris.
And thank you very much for bringing me in a coffee. That's very nice of you. So I've had about 20 million yellow jet planes and I'll finish with a coffee and then I'm good. I'm good to go. The newsroom wanted me to ask you the question about whether or not you think New Zealand could be heading into a recession. I'm going to answer and say I don't think we are. What's your interpretation based on what your members are telling you?
Yeah. Well, look, I think it's really crucial timing right now. I mean, obviously with the escalation of alert levels and depending on how long we are going to be in level 3 in Auckland and level 2 in the rest of the country, that will play some part in what the future looks like. But certainly the forecasts and things that were predicted last year, we've fared much better than that. So, the business community and the general economy has actually done incredibly well under the circumstances. So if we can carry on and hopefully that these, alert level escalations are short-lived, I think that we can do really well like we have done in the past. But there's no doubt, that we are still seeing significant impacts from COVID.
In terms of the way people are spending their money or in terms of what your members are saying or a bit of both, do you think?
Look, a little bit of both. I mean, I think, with the announcement on Sunday, obviously it came out quite quickly, so that was a bit of a surprise. But actually, given what we're seeing overseas and the ongoing resurgence of COVID and these various strains, I think we should have expected to see some changes here in this country. So, that creates a little bit of uncertainty. There's no doubt it still continues to have an impact on the business community. We're fortunate in Canterbury to only be in alert level 2, but even under alert level 2, major concerts and events and things like that has an impact. And then there's a flow-on impact for all the suppliers to those sectors. So, and generally, people's confidence, people aren't perhaps quite as likely to head out and support the bars and the restaurants and get out and support the retailers. So, that sometimes does have a bit of an impact. So let's hope that it's short-lived. Our business community have been through adversity many times before. They are well prepared for this. We've got the systems and processes in place. And, we don't want any more adversity. And I should just acknowledge, obviously, we've got the 10-year anniversary of the Christchurch earthquakes coming up. And, while that's, a very, very sad occasion, one of the things that has taught us is to actually respond to adversity. And so we are reasonably well conditioned to adversity in this city and in this region. And that does put us in a unique position of actually being really agile and innovative when it comes to actually responding. Well,
that's my next question. With even with level 2, there are some quite prohibitive or restrictions on bars and restaurants. How do you think that'll play out in Christchurch?
Yeah, well, look, certainly what we saw last time is we saw that people did continue to go out and support the local businesses, and we hope that continues to be the case. There's certainly some real challenges for the bars and restaurants. In fact, I'm going out for dinner myself tonight, but, they do have to, do the single server and the social distancing and all those sorts of things. So that does impose limitations on those businesses in terms of how many people they can have in the restaurants and the bars. So, it's another bit of pain for those sectors that are still continuing to be impacted by not having international tourists and things in this country.
In terms of, I hate to say it, but as we come into the winter months, what can we do, or what do you think businesses will be looking to do to try and make sure that they can survive? Because that's a tricky time. Yeah,
it is, and particularly for those sectors that we've just talked about, because often they use the summer, which is traditionally much busier here in Christchurch than the winter months, to actually build up, a good buffer to get them through the quieter period. So, I think we have seen that great support of our local community getting out there and really supporting the local businesses. I hope to see that will continue. And actually, I think as a result of that, we've had a whole lot of people say, I didn't know that was there. I didn't know, these experiences were here. We've seen the domestic tourism, play a significant part over the summer in helping to, really ensure that some of these businesses, are doing really well. So let's hope that we'll continue to see that, good local support, not only in Christchurch and Canterbury, but right across the country. Obviously, once we get out of alert level 3 in Auckland and we can get travellers going around the rest of the country as well.
Do you think that the city needs a bit more festivals and a bit more events to help get there, or do you think we're seeing as a city steady as she goes, because we could put on a big festival and like what we've got now, a situation in Auckland, we could have something similar? Is that?
Yeah.
Do you think that's possibly in the back of people's minds?
Look, I think certainly towards the tail end of last year, I would have said no. I think people were really keen to get out and about. We had a big event a couple of weeks ago. We had 300 people. All of the Chambers events are sold out in the next month, which is a really good indication. Well, that's a good sign, isn't it? Yeah, it is a great indication that people do want to get out. They want to network. They want to be around people, and they want to support those local events. Of course, with the announcement on Sunday, that does provide uncertainty, and it's a big job. I mean, even within my own organisation, thinking about a big event that we've got, next Friday, are we going to be able to run it or are we not? I mean, if we remain in alert level 2, we won't be able to run it. So there are costs involved in, in making those decisions. There are critical points when you have to make those decisions. So that is really, really challenging. And so, of course, what you will potentially see is people just being a little bit hesitant to put on some of those bigger events where, at the drop of a hat, we might find that we can't run them. I mean, I see, on the paper this morning, Electric Avenues, what they've come out and said is if they can't run it, they will postpone it, which I think's great, because the easy option is to go, we'll just cancel it. Postponing an event would be incredibly challenging with the logistics of, coordinating so many different people, suppliers, etc. But postponing is a much better option for our local community and also for all of the suppliers from an economic perspective than actually cancelling those events. So, yeah.
I know, Leanne, that a lot of perhaps name sales or doomsday people have been saying that we could possibly see another round of not redundancies, but perhaps people losing their jobs. I suppose it is redundancies in the second quarter of this year. But I'm looking at the positives here, because every time the government has announced, I suppose they probably are announcing the worst case scenario, it hasn't happened or it hasn't been as bad. What's your gut feeling?
Yeah, and look, I think, as I said before, there are still businesses that are significantly impacted by COVID. And for them to continue to be impacted for a long period of time. I mean, a few months ago we were hoping to have a Trans-Tasman bubble open. That is very unlikely now in the next sort of 6 months or so, maybe even longer. And so a lot of people have been, I guess, just holding on to that hope that we might see things like the Trans-Tasman bubble and those sorts of things actually generate a bit more, I guess, income for some of those businesses that have been impacted. So, look, I do think there are some risks around that. I think that on the flip side of that, as I said before, businesses in Christchurch and Canterbury are incredibly resilient, and they are used to being able to having to, and I hate the word pivot, but actually pivot and think about how they might run their businesses differently. I think a lot of the businesses will have already made some of those big shifts and some really hard decisions last year. And very few of them will have not done anything. So, I hope that they can, continue to hold on, get the support that they need. I mean, there is support available through a lot of the different government channels. I mean, there was obviously you've seen the announcement of the Resurgence Support Program that's just been announced this morning.
So what does that mean exactly for businesses?
Well, it's going through, I've only just read it, but it's going through Cabinet today. And so if the alert levels are extended beyond 72 hours, then if a business can show a 30% reduction over a 7-day period, they're eligible for some support. And it's capped up to about 20K, I think, 21.5K. So it is primarily aimed at small business. So there's a payment for the business and then a payment based on every employee that you have. So, those are the sorts of things that are available. The Small Business Cash Flow Loan Scheme is also available for businesses if they need a bit of support to get them through that winter period. So there is support available out there, and I think for businesses who haven't necessarily had to seek that support because they've been able to hang on for the last few months, maybe it's a time to just have another think about that and whether or not they do need that support. We encourage the business community if they're unsure, give us a call at the chamber. With the 0800 helpline, 0800 50 50 96 is available for all businesses across the South Island to pick up the phone, have a chat. We've got, some really great people that can, listen to the situation that you're in, provide some guidance on what support is available, or actually just listen and try and help you sort of navigate, the way forward. So, reach out. Now's not a time to try and do it on your own. Reach out to some of those trusted advisors that you may have in your network, and if you haven't got those people, then actually just reach out to that 0800 number that I just mentioned as well.
And a lot of times, small or medium-sized businesses often think there's not enough support for them. From what I've seen from the government, there actually is quite a lot of support. It's just a matter of knowing where to go to get that support. That's what I know the Chamber can do. You can sort of bridge it all together so you don't have to think too much.
Yep.
Are you're always accepting new members, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. Always accepting new members. But just to reinforce, that 0800 number, you do not need to be a Chamber member. So anyone can call that number and be navigated through that myriad of support. And you're right, there is a huge amount of support, but it can be overwhelming, particularly when you're a bit stressed and overwhelmed with the future that you're facing. It can be pretty challenging to find stuff on some of the government websites. So, what my team can do is actually help you through and pinpoint you to exactly the right part of the particular website or the right package. So, you don't have to sort of try and navigate that all on your own.
Nicely said. Always good advice. Nice to see you.
Lovely to see you too.
Ian
Enjoy
Watson,
your coffee.
thank you. And thank you very much for the coffee. I'm going to gulp it down the break. It's News Talk.